We're now going to start to work in the Develop module within Lightroom. Now, this module is a real powerhouse for Lightroom. This is where now we take an image and we can go in and we can enhance it and manipulate it. And what we can do is create ourselves a very fast workflow for working on our images. The bonus here is it is a non-destructive workflow, so therefore we can reverse it at any time. What used to happen was we'd open an image in Photoshop, we'd make our changes, close it, and the changes we made were destructive. We couldn't really go back and undo it. Whilst here, now in Lightroom, everything is reversible, which makes it really powerful in the way that we deal with our images. So, having a quick look at it, it hasn't really changed much from the library module. However, if you notice now, the interface in the center is just that one big picture, and we can't loop between grid and the single image itself. And that's because this is where we start to do all the work. This is where we're going to make the changes. We'll come in and enhance things within the image, within the main interface. The nameplate hasn't really changed, except the Develop module is now highlighted and the library is grayed out. Down the bottom we still have our film strip. But notice here when we point to these images, the navigator up in the top left is changing. And that's because now it's giving you a preview of what's going to happen before we actually click. And then I can click and commit to something. So the bonus here is I can look before I actually try. So the real work area for these is in the left and the right panels. So we'll start off on the left hand side, and basically what we still have is, it's called the navigator, but really it's a bit of a preview option that we have. But once again, we can get our image to fill, go one to one, and use it as a navigator to go around and work within a particular image. We can also choose a particular scale rate that we want to work with that image. So once again, just tick it to flick and we're in business. Underneath that, we've got these presets. Lightroom will give you some presets. These are actions that are pre-made up that you can apply to an image to have a particular look. Now the bonus is when you point to these, up here in the navigator, you're getting a preview of what they look like before we even commit. So that's a real bonus, because you've got an idea before you go and actually commit to doing something. So you can go through, oh, I like that look, I like black and white too. We can go through, click, and we can apply it to the image. So we can have a preview first before we can commit. Now Lightroom give you a heap of these previews. What you can do is you can create your own by simply pressing the plus button here. So you create a number of actions, you make sure you tick those actions off, and then you can save it as a preset, and that will automatically be applied to any future images that you have. What you can also do is purchase presets, and a lot of companies are now making them, and people make these presets and they make them for Lightroom, and you can just simply load them in. Underneath that, we've got this snapshot function. So what happens on the snapshot function, there's nothing in there at the moment, but say I've done some particular work on an image, and I like that, and I think, okay, I just want to save a copy of that before I go and do other actions, so I can come back if I really like it. By clicking this snapshot option, it basically gives you a date and time group. You go create, and then what happens, if I go in and apply some other crazy things to this that I think is going to work, or I want to have happen to the image, you know, and I'm sitting there and I think, oh, I haven't really made it. What this snapshot will do, it will let me go back to that particular area or that look that I had. So it's like really saving those options that you have already done. The other option is you've always got the history, and what it does is it saves you having to go through and say, oh, was it that action? Was it that action? Was it there? Was it here? Etc. So that's one of the bonuses. If you ever need to get rid of these snapshots, you simply click on it and hit the negative button and it's gone. Under here we've got collections. So once again, if you've created collections of work that you want to work on, like flowing water, all of a sudden now down the film strip, they're the only images there, all the flowing water ones. So I'm only working on a particular catalogue or a particular collection that I've created, and I don't need to go through and try and go through all the images finding what I want. There's the awning ones there. So I can go, yep, I want to work on that particular image. I can come up here, apply maybe a preset to it that I think would work. Yep, that looks great, happy with that. Doesn't really, but you know, that would be the case. So that's one of the bonuses you have. these collections are going to make your life a lot easier. Now the copy and paste buttons, I'm going to talk about them later on. Don't be too concerned with them at the moment, but they do have some handy functions that we can use. In the toolbar column under here, you can basically preview the image as we see it now, or you can click on the before and after option. So you can see what it looked like before to see what it looks like after. By simply clicking on that, it'll cycle you through the different before and after options that you have available. Going back to the single module, next here you have this soft proofing. I will talk about soft proofing a lot more detail. What this is basically where you go through and prepare an image to be printed. And it'll basically bring the image in to the color gamut range that you are able to print with. So it's called soft proofing. Really, really great function within Lightroom 4. Up the top here, we have our histogram, and basically what we have here is what we can see our histogram. We can see if we've got too much black, too much white, etc. At any time when we apply stuff and we think we want to go back to where we were, we can go to the history and take ourselves back, or just come down and hit this reset button down the bottom here, and it takes the image back to its original image. So we can always reverse stuff, and that's what I'm saying about Lightroom working in a non-destructive mode. So up here we've got our histogram, and this time we can see the colours. Once we hit that, tick that soft proofing area, this now changes. So we'll cover this in a lot more detail, and it's quite interesting how it works. So turn it off, and it's just a normal histogram. Where you point within the image, if you notice there's numbers in the histogram, that'll tell you what colour it is. You can take that formula across and recreate that colour in Lightroom or Photoshop or somewhere else. Under here you've got a whole heap of other little functions like the crop tool. We've got a healing or cloning tool, red eye, gradient tool, and this is an adjustment brush where we can go through and adjust certain parts of the image. Very, very handy. We've got our basic option here. When we drop this down, this is just going to let us change those basic things like that we could do in Camera Raw normally, where we can change exposure, highlights, and a bit more vibrance, clarity to the whole image. We can play with tonal curves. We can come in and we can start to play with specific colours within the image. So that's one of the great things we can do here. We have a lot more control. We can do split toning. We can play with that side of it, pull the saturation out, deal with shadows, highlights, etc. We've got a lot more sharpening capability as well, and we can also pull out a lot of noise from images with this module as well. We've got this thing now we call lens correction, where we can go in, and if a lens gives us a particular effect, we can go in and change it and fix it all up. And we can straighten buildings, and we can do all that type of exciting stuff. The effects, we can add things like vignettes. There's a whole heap of great little things. Add a bit of grain. We can do a variety of things to the image. And then lastly, we've got this camera calibration, where we can go through and just make some little adjustments as needed, depending on the type of camera we're using, lenses, etc. So that's just a quick overview of it. We're going to really talk about this right-hand panel and go through using all these tools, and we'll probably also do a little bit of other things on the presets.